What's up, you guys? This is Sales Bro Pod, episode 14. This time around, we've got Mr. Gabe Pluguez. Gabe, thank you for coming on, man.
Heck yes, brother. I'm pumped to be here. I love this podcast, so I'm coming on as a fan and a friend.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. I'm happy to hear it. And I've been wanting to have you on. I made that post and a few people reached out to me, you being one of them, but I had been meaning to get you on. I just knew you were really fucking busy. So I was like, let me just like see if he reaches out to me first. Um but no, man, this is gonna be really good for anyone listening. This guy Gabe, he's like, if you're on our side of Twitter, you might know him as like more of like the fitness guy, and like he helps men become better men and all that. But this dude is a sales savage, and not many know about it. So it's gonna be really good, Gabe. For the context of, or for context for the viewers, these guys who, they may not know who you are, or they may know that you're, part of Default Kings, co-owner. Um, what would you say you're up to right now? Like, give these people your little elevator pitch, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So I'm one of the founders of Default Kings and one of the co-owners. And for essentially the entirety of Default Kings, I've been our CSO. So I managed all the sales from taking all the sales calls myself and literally like living the remote closer life for my own company, right? Wake up, like coffee, right? And just calls like back to back to back. And, if a call no showed, you're almost happy. You're laying on the bed, just like contemplating life because of how intense the life is. To managing our sales team at Default Kings. We have 3 closers now. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm focusing on acquisition for the company and also some of the fulfillment, but managing our sales team, doing the marketing, and trying to help all these guys that we work with.
Yeah. So basically, like remote closer, but also owner and manager. So you definitely get the trials and tribulations of like being the remote closer.
Yeah.
And for context, everyone, I was part of Gabe's sales team for like 7 months last year, and got to know this guy pretty well, know the business and the other guys on the team. Great team, nothing but good things to say. So I'm super hyped to dive into this. So let's take it back in time, man. I want to talk about both sales and the entrepreneurship side of things, because I think most salespeople, it's a natural progression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Younger Gabe, I feel like I remember you saying you were kind of more of that extroverted type of person, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. It was really interesting because I've always been extremely like extroverted, love talking to people, charismatic, like not to my own horn and say like, oh, I was the outgoing kid who like everybody liked, but I kind of was that, right? Like one prom king type of thing, friends with everybody type of thing, always team captain of my like sports teams type of thing. That was just like my identity from such a young age. And when we started our business, myself and Jack Bly, who founded the company, within the first like 3 weeks of being in business, we realized that my ability to speak to people and communicate with people was a unique advantage, right? Just through like baseline experiences, right? Is like Jack would say like, dude, you're the people person, right? Like I'm the behind the screen person. I'm the numbers person. It's like, cool, awesome. So once we were about a year in to trying to start our business and not making any money, we realized that we needed to focus on sales as an entire extension of the business. And it was a natural, just like, Gabe, you're in charge of that, you're doing that. So it was super natural for me, and doing what I do, talking and communicating with people, seems like it was almost expected, right? Like, of course
Yeah.
I'm going to be the person having those conversations. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's already part of my identity, I feel like.
Cool. When did you guys start Default Kings?
2019. 2019. So
2019.
that was like the last, like, or like a week after our freshman year of college was when we started. Almost
Yeah.
4 years to the day.
Cool. Did you, before that, did you ever have any like entrepreneurial spirit, or did you ever have an idea that, hey, sales is something that I could be pretty good at, or like, was this the first go at it?
Mhm. Yeah. So it's interesting because I never had an intention to be entrepreneurial, but I had an intention to make lots of money, and I had an intention to lead people in some way. Like, those are 2 things that I felt called to do at a young age. Right.
Yeah.
And when I was in college, I kind of felt like, okay, my passion is health and fitness, right? I want to help people. I also want to make a lot of money. So let me become a physician, right? And so my first year in college, I'm like pre-medical track, like learning all about this stuff. And then I realized that physicians hate their lives. And I also had personal experiences with physicians that made me really distrust the medical system. So I was like, that's not what I want to do. And I remember having this conversation with Jack outside the gym one day where we just like had that talk where I was like, dude, like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do in life? And we were both kind of like, I don't freaking know. Like, I have no idea. All I know is I want to make a lot of money and I want to do more than I'm doing right now. And so that day, we literally decided like we should start a business. And the very next day, we start the business. We meet up at a study room in my community college with like a blank business plan. So it wasn't that I was always wanting to be an entrepreneur, but it was that entrepreneurship just seemed like the vehicle to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Dude, that's the same thing with me. I definitely was not the average sales type. But
Mhm.
I knew that like I wanted to have money. And my thing was like, dude, I just wanted to be able to like provide at a super high level.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, like it kind of comes down to money and time. So I was like,
Mhm.
what is gonna give me that? And I like just stumbled into sales and then entrepreneurship. It's still sales, but um common theme there. So now Default Kings, man, there's probably like so many stories and so much experience and like game that you can put on. But let's talk about like the first 6 months or so where you were tasked with sales and you had never done sales before. Like, where did you start? Like, did you
Yeah.
just start hopping on calls with people and like talking to them? Like, what? How did you like get good?
Yeah, dude, it was a long and tedious process because um I actually did sales calls for an entire year with zero sales training or any sales, like not even a script or anything like that. Like I had no idea what I was doing. So I
Yeah,
remember the first like sales call I took, um, we put out like a Facebook ad. By the way, we didn't know anything about Facebook ads. This is like within, month 6 or something. And we somehow get like a phone number and we start collecting like lists of phone numbers. And I just start cold calling all these phone numbers like manually, like not with the dialer. All these numbers are in my notes. And I'm just like typing them in my phone and like calling them on my iPhone. And obviously, this took like a super crazy long time and it was really inefficient. But I remember my first experience with sales would be lying in my bed at like 11:30 p.m. at night, like after class, after hitting the gym, just cold calling this list of phone numbers, literally laying in my bed with my iPhone and seeing if people would pick up, right? And of course, some people would pick up and they'd immediately be like, "Oh, fuck you! Don't ever call me again. Go jump off a bridge." Right? So I got that laying in my bed at 11:30 at night. And some people would answer it. I have no idea like what to even move them towards or anything. I didn't even know what a sales process was. So I made those classic mistakes of like just teaching them instead of, moving the sale forward, right? Where I would hop on a call somebody. If I could strike up a conversation with them, I'd be like, okay, cool. Like what do your macros look like right now? Right? Like what does your nutrition look like? And I would just teach them. Right. And me, a notorious flaw that I am somewhat known for on our sales team was talking for a very long time. And I would talk to people for like an hour and a half and just give them like a fitness consultation and have no idea where to go from there. Right. No idea where to go
yeah,
from there. And I did that for like a year. And, some people would buy, some people wouldn't. But until I was, uh, until we were a year in and, kind of the pressure was on, like, you have to make this work. Right when we kind of hit that time period, I hired my first sales mentor. Right. This was like my intro to what sales actually was. Like I literally didn't really know what sales actually was.
yeah.
And his name was Andrew Strom, and he had this mentorship program, coaching program. And that was my like dive into, oh, this is an actual skill that I need to hone. This is a real thing. There's a process, there's a goal, there's strategy, there's skills. So yeah, that's what it looked like for me just getting into sales.
Yeah. We had, or I had Andy on the podcast. I don't know how long ago it was. one of like the last 5 episodes he was on, and he talked briefly on working with you guys. Um, okay, so in that first year or so, when you're like hitting cold calls, first off, like cold calling at 11:30 at night is like crazy, bro. Like these people were like sleeping and stuff. The pickup rate was probably so bad. Um, but were you selling like, because I think a lot of people when they start their own service, they start with like the low to mid ticket, right? Because it's just more comfortable, it's easier to sell. Were you guys starting there, or were you already like, hey, we're gonna do this and we're gonna charge X amount, like a larger percentage for it, or amount? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no. We were totally low ticket, but it's not because we like knew what high ticket. It's because we didn't even know what high ticket what even was. We didn't know it was possible to charge that amount of money for a service.
Yeah.
So we just kind of threw out a number like, and it was totally undervalued, obviously, but first like clients were like $60 clients, right? Like $60 a month clients. And you do the math, and you're like, like X amount of clients of financial freedom is okay. This is not really going to work out. But until about a year in, when we first got some of our business mentors, one of them being Andy, is when we discovered like, oh, you can actually create a high ticket service and charge a high ticket for it. So
Yeah.
that didn't hit until like year one. We were still charging like in the 60 to like $200 something a month range. It was insane.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So was Andy the one that like was like, hey, you guys need to be charging way more, or was it like just from meeting other people as well?
Yeah. So it was actually another mentor of ours named Sean. He's Western Mastery on Twitter. He like introduced us to high ticket sales, right? Or
Okay.
high ticket services in general. And obviously, like that term can mean a lot, right? Like there's
Yeah.
few like mid ticket, high ticket, like depending on what industry you're in or whatever. But I remember the first high ticket client I signed was like a $1,400 client or something like that. And I was on the phone with him. I thought that was absolutely insane to ask for that amount of money. Um, and he didn't even pay in full. He paid like 800 on that day, and then like the rest, 2 weeks or something down the road. And just like hanging up that phone after signing that first client, it didn't feel like real life, right? Like I put
Yeah.
the phone down and I couldn't even conceive that I just made $800 in that, 45 minute to an hour conversation. But just like pretty much every salesperson's like experience or business owner's experience, once you feel that once, it just completely shifts your worldview to what's possible. And then you're off to the races.
Yeah. That first time, and I'm sure you had like jobs when you were in like high school and college, right? Bro, that first time you sell something that's like expensive without having to work like 30, 40 hours to make that money, it's like Wolf of Wall Street. Like you start seeing money signs. You're like, dude, we're gonna be rich. Like, um, I think in 2018 I had my first like email marketing copywriting client, and I charged him 800 a month. And I remember he Venmoed it to like my personal Venmo. It was like a
Yeah.
super shitty cold DM on Instagram. Um, and I got that and I was like, dude, this doesn't feel real. Like, holy shit, I'm about to like run this up. Little did I know, like he was the only client that I'd ever have for that business. I like shut it down. Um, but yeah, dude. So you get that first like 1,400 payment plan, and now we're about like a year in. But you were talking about Twitter, like you had met some of these mentors on Twitter. Like
Mhm.
you weren't using Twitter to market this in the beginning, were you? Like you said, it was
Um,
Facebook ads.
so right in the beginning, we were using Instagram, and we did like some Facebook ads and some YouTube ads. But our Instagram account like never gained traction because we sucked at content. We had literally no idea what we were doing, no idea whatsoever. So we actually came to Twitter almost out of like spite for not seeing results on Instagram. We're like, this is not working. We've tried for a year. Let's just change it up and move to Twitter. And so we go on Twitter, we create our accounts to promote our services, and we immediately find ourselves in money Twitter and find all these mentors, right?
Yeah.
And so it was originally to promote our business, but right at the same time, like we find ourselves in money Twitter and then find our mentors.
Cool. Cool. How does all of this line up with like Jack and yourself, like in school. I can't remember completely. You guys finished or didn't finish? What was the story there?
Mhm. Dude, the kind of timeline is we start this thing at the end of our freshman year, right? And we're just starting a business because we want to. No clue if it's going to work out. Plan B is 100% still there, right?
Yeah.
And we start the business. It takes us about a year to see like a dollar come in, and this is the end of our sophomore year, right? But just like anything, once that first dollar comes in, you kind of grow really exponentially, right? Because fundamentally, it wasn't that you just weren't doing enough work; it was that you didn't
Yeah.
have the right beliefs or skills to make that first dollar, and you have that forever. So it kind of compounds from there. And so once we made that first dollar at the end of our sophomore year, it was only like 6 more-ish months to like the beginning of our junior year where we were making enough money to where when we looked at it, it was like, we will never be poor objectively. Like we're nowhere near where we want to be, obviously, not even close, but
Yeah.
we can survive. Right. And that was enough for us in the beginning of our junior year to say, if we can survive doing this thing that we love, with a purpose that fulfills us, right? With the freedom that comes with entrepreneurship, then we're just going to go all in, right? And so we drop out of college around the beginning of our junior year, like after or midway through the first semester, right? We never actually technically dropped out. We just like stopped doing our work and never re-registered.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the beginning of our junior year of college. That's when that happened.
Damn. And I assume from there, once you put like your full focus on this is when we really like started to see some gains.
100%. 100%. It was funny
Cool.
because that entire like junior year, I was already putting most of my focus and attention towards the business, right? Like I
Yeah.
was the guy who was writing tweets like in biology class, right? Like not knowing anything that's going on and just focusing on the business. And I remember specifically a crazy memory for me that like was a moment where I really questioned like, why am I in college? Was when I was sitting down in an exercise science class, like a strength and conditioning class, and the professor, there's a class of like 80 to 100 kids or whatever. The professor is teaching a subject that's like rudimentary compared to the actual work I was doing in her class. So I was sitting in her class doing work for my business that was far beyond the advancement of what she was teaching in
Hmm.
that class, right? As I was like ignoring her, and you like look up like what's going on, like, this is weird. I can't believe they're even talking about this. I'm
Yeah.
doing the advanced level, beyond exam level stuff right now for money, right? For money. And so that moment like just shifted my perception of what's the value of me being here, right? The only value is the potential quote unquote safety net of having a degree, but the real only value is everybody else's expectations and how everybody else looked at me, right? For staying
Mm.
in college and following the beaten path and following the normal path. And the only risk was how people were going to view me if I didn't do this, right?
Yeah.
And so I was willing to take that risk 100%. And it paid
Yeah.
off massively.
Yeah. I was curious to know, like, obviously your friends and family have a big influence over you, especially on a subject such as leaving school for like something else. What were some of the influences that you had around you when you were like contemplating making that jump? Like were they positive? Were they like, I don't want to say negative, but were they like hesitant? Were they trying to tell you like, Gabe, maybe you should stay, a little bit longer? Like what were the influences like?
Yeah. So in the business world, it was all kind of encouraging it, like, yeah, dude, go all in. Right.
Yeah.
But in my personal life, it was all advising heavily against it. Right. Not discouraging. I'll say that. Like my family has always supported and loved me and believed in me as much as they could. But essentially every single person in my life was like, don't do it. What are you doing? This is absolutely insane. Right. And so a lot of people tell that story and they're talking about how like, oh, your mom, she doesn't want you to succeed. Your family doesn't believe in you. Cut off your family. You don't need that noise. Right. But the way I looked at it was if my family who does love me is discouraging me from taking this path, there must be a reason for that, right? And the reason for that was that regardless of how I felt about myself, I hadn't given them enough evidence to believe in me, right? Like, guess what? Dropping out of college, I had a little bit going with the business, but I really actually had nothing to show for it. I provided them no evidence as to why that was a good idea whatsoever,
Yeah.
right? And so when they would ask me, like, why are you doing this? You come up with some explanation and you fumble your words. But the reason that that conversation hurts so bad is because you're asking yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't, like, Gabe, don't you think this is so risky? Like, how do you know it's going to work out? And like, it'll work out, it'll work out. But in the back of your head, you're like, I don't know if it's going to work out. I
Yeah.
have no idea if it's going to work out. So that's why it's like, Gabe, how are classes going? You're like, oh, why would you ask that? Like that's so, it makes you so insecure, right? It's because you
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't know at the time. So I never like blamed them or got angry at them. I, of course, you know, as any young man would, try to stand your ground based on absolutely no evidence of work at that point. But all of that totally shifted once I showed my parents, my family, the receipts, right?
Mhm.
Like, you have the conversations where you literally just discuss, like, mom, like, here's how much I made today, right?
Yeah.
Or this month. It's like, oh, okay. Or, hey, mom, like, I'm handling all these responsibilities now, right? Like, I'm moving here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, right? And once they saw the evidence, then it was just complete support. It was like, oh, that's crazy. You were right. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting.
that's what that looked like for me.
When you like when you went to school, did you go in like to like a you said a local community college?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to
Okay.
a community college in Orlando called Valencia.
Okay. But were you still like living with the parents at that time?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. I would imagine like those influences probably a lot stronger when you're living with them and they're like, well, dude, you drop out, like, can't stick around here. I don't know. I feel like that's what my parents would have said. I think that's what they did say. Like, while I was in school, I could always stay with them because I went to a local university.
Hmm.
Um, but then like if I chose to like drop out or like I graduated and I didn't get a job, like I wasn't just gonna fucking hang around, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, like you were, dude, if you're living that with them, they saw you like grinding. They probably heard you taking sales calls, um, in your like bedroom or wherever you would do that, right?
Mm.
But cool, man. And for like timeline, I mean, when did you like decide to drop out? Like when was that like before the pandemic, during the pandemic? Like how did it line
It
up?
was, it's funny because it was actually like, it was during the pandemic, right? The pandemic 2020 was about like our 1 year mark, like just about that time.
Hmm.
Right. So I remember like going to gyms and like, you know, you have to wear a mask to get in. Or I remember gyms closing like before we made a single dollar in profit. So this
Hmm.
timeline kind of played out towards the end ish of the pandemic, like late 2020,
Okay.
2021 ish.
Cool. Cool. All right, man. So where should we take it from here? So you get some steam, drop out of school, you go full time, you got Jack on your side. You're investing in mentors. Besides like sales, like what other mentors did you invest in for the business?
Yeah, dude. We invested in a lot of just like general business mentors that were just kind of like overall growth. One of the guys who we worked with really closely was Zach Hummel. Have you connected with him on Twitter?
I know of him, but I've never spoke to him.
Yeah, awesome, awesome guy, right? And I think Jack and I reached out to him when we are at like 25K a month or something like that, and we had no idea like how he could have helped us. We just know that he offered services, and we like, I don't know if I texted him or DM'd him or something. I was like, hey, dude, like we want to double the business. Can you help us with that? And like no website, almost no explanation. He was just like, yes, 100%. I could definitely do that. Right. And we're like, okay, sure. And so we pay him, you know, all our money once again, like we usually do. And he actually he helped us a lot with like some business stuff for sure. But the biggest value we got out of working with him was him teaching us like life lessons that apply to business that were just made us like more mature individuals so that we can
Mm.
like execute our business and serve our people. Right. And Like Zach Hummel, that guy's a wise soul, like a wise, true, like guru soul, like for real, right? Like you're around him, you're like, oh my gosh, like how is this guy human? And every single lesson that he imparted on us, 100% through and through, every single thing has played out and come
Yeah.
true exactly how he said it was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And we listened to a lot of it and we ignored some of it. And the stuff that we ignored that he said we were going to pay for, absolutely paid for. And the stuff that we followed, they said we were going to benefit from, 100% benefited from. So he was a huge, huge influence for us in terms of business mentorship, and we've invested in a bunch of other guys, kind of in between, but he was a big one.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard really good things about him. So that's cool to hear. So yeah, I mean, and sometimes that's how it happens, bro. Like the best advice for your business isn't necessarily business advice. Like it's personal advice, and then you just take that and then go about what you've got to do, and it shows in everything that you do. The teachings.
I totally agree,
Man.
dude. It's like that. I believe it's Hormozy who said this. His name probably gets dropped a million times a minute on this podcast and all entrepreneurship podcasts.
Yeah.
But he says something like, every single business problem is really an entrepreneur problem. Like it's just a reflection of a personal problem. And I believe that to be true 100%. Like we were talking shop about business stuff before we hopped on this podcast. And we can always trace that back to a character flaw in the business owner every single time. And so with Zach, I think he was very aware of that. And that's what he made us aware of as well. It was like every single problem that you face in your business is going to stem from a lack of development in your character. So that needs to be maintained and developed above all if you hope for your business to expand.
Yeah. So speaking of that, man, expanding, like when did Default Kings go from you and Jack to like, okay, now we've got 2 other people on the team. Now we got 4 other people on the team, 6 other people. When did it really start to pop?
Mm-hmm. So it was the beginning of 2023. It was the end to beginning of end of 2021, beginning of 2022. Joey, right? He's the other co-owner on the team. We met Joey on New Year's Eve 2021. We literally he was in Florida, like visiting family with Matt Moore, and we just hit a workout with him. First time we ever met him, right? Like just met this guy. And Joey actually asked us for help with his own personal like online fitness business. And so we were kind of like coaching him up a little bit for a few weeks, maybe a month. And within the beginning of 2022, Jack and I really realized this guy's an A player, right? Like he has the work ethic that it's rare to find. He has the values that are rare to find, right? Like he's going to go far no matter what. We want him as part of our team. And so we asked him to join our team beginning of 2022. And since then, like everything exploded like crazy, right? Like you were part of that initial sales team. I think I was like midway through 2022. And since then, it's just continued to grow from there.
Yeah. Joey's awesome, dude. He's helped me with a lot of stuff. Like he's like the operations go, but he's helped me like set up Zaps and all this stuff for like my personal community and stuff. And yeah, he's a cool dude. Okay, so like late 2021, you met Joey. 2022 is when you started bringing on hires. Sales team came on around mid 2022. Cool. So what was the transition like? I mean, you had been doing sales now, like let's talk high ticket sales for like at least a year since you like switched that model. I mean, in that time, and I know like you invest in training continuously, like to this day, but in that time, like, did you feel like you got really freaking good at what you were doing, or like what before you became sales manager, like what would you say the progression was from like Gabe in 2021 to Gabe in 2022 sales wise?
Yeah. The progression was over that year, like before actually launching the initial sales team, I knew I was good only because of my results, right? Like I can look at my close rate. I can look at how much money we were making. It's like, okay, I'm obviously good at this. I know what I'm doing. but I had
Yeah.
no idea why I was good at all. Like I couldn't tell you what I was doing. I couldn't tell you my strategy. Basically, all I could do was like explain, here's how I talk on the sales call. Right. And what taught me that was when I brought in the original sales team. So you probably got like the ugly brunt face of this as part of the sales team, where I was like, how do I explain to the team what I'm doing that's working?
Yeah.
No idea, because I don't know why what I'm doing is working. Right. So when I brought in that original sales team with you and I realized like, shit, like I'm having trouble transferring what I'm doing effectively. Thank God for you, because you already had so many fundamental sales skills. You were able to pick it up. And I felt like a lot of that was almost like you listening to me and like deciphering and being like, okay, got it. Cool, Gabe. Like, and then implementing what you already knew. Um, but I realized like I need to understand the why what I'm doing works, and then develop the skill of teaching what I'm doing, so that it's an
Yeah.
actual system. So mid 2022 to end of 2022 was the most I ever learned about sales. Like I redove into learning sales because I knew if I didn't really know the principles of what I was doing, I can't teach it to any sales team
Yeah.
that I'm hiring, and I can't lead a sales team that I'm hiring. It doesn't matter to like how well I'm doing, right? Because there's so many variables that go into that, from the aspect of me being a founder, first of all, right, to also just having a lot of inefficiencies and not even knowing where it could have been going wrong. But late 2022, I dove into so much more sales training, and I feel like I became more focused on sales after I left the day to day of all the sales calls, right? Like when I had the ability to distribute some of the sales calls to you guys, and I was still taking a few a week, but that's when I was like, okay, I can focus so much time on just learning sales so I can
Yeah.
teach my team sales. And yeah, like end of 2022, beginning of this year is when I felt like now I know what sales is completely. Like I
Yeah.
could teach it.
It's completely two different things, like selling, well, actually three different: selling, managing, and then teaching. Like you can get pretty far selling just by like intuition if you're a sharp dude, which
Mhm.
I'd assume is probably how you picked up pretty quick. Um, and I think like even though I'm not like an extrovert, whatever, like I was able to kind of pick up on things pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Me personally, though, I've never managed a sales team. I've
Mhm.
definitely had like a little bit of say in some of the management, like helping build stuff out, but I've never managed at scale, so I can't speak on that. But I have taught people sales, and that, like,
Mhm.
dude, it doesn't matter how good you are, like, it is a completely different skill.
Totally.
Now, ideally for you, like, you're not having to bring people in and teach them sales, right? Like, you want people who kind of already have that baseline. It's like, oh yeah, here's how you sell what we have, not
Yeah.
here's how you sell, right?
Yeah.
Um, now this,
Totally.
did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. This is a
Okay.
funny point because that's like absolutely right. As any sales manager, which totally different skill than teaching and doing it yourself, which man, I'm still learning how to be a sales manager, right? Um, the ideal is that you hire people who know sales already, so you can focus on managing, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, at least in my experience as a business owner, and maybe this is just like our space, maybe just like our Twitter world, money Twitter, whatever. But I believe personally that 90 to 95% of the people who are qualified, experienced salespeople are nowhere near the standard that it takes to become one of the best salespeople in this space. Right. Like
Yeah.
there are very few, I feel like there's a Mount Rushmore of people who really know sales in this space. And maybe it's because most of the guys come from a different industry, right? Where they got by on some very basic level sales job, right? And they've been doing the sales job at this tech company for 4 years, and they're very experienced, and they've closed this much in revenue,
Yeah.
right? You're like, okay, cool. Like you're probably a gangster, bro. Like hop on the team, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. They were
Yeah.
letting you sell blindfolded at that company. That is insane. So
Yeah.
I don't know where this all comes from, but the ideal is yes, I want people who are already good at sales when I hire them, but I've completely let go of that expectation 100%. Where now I look for people who are A players. And when I say A players, I mean they're willing to learn, because I know
Yeah.
95% of the people are going to need to learn. Just they have to, right?
Yeah.
And if people aren't willing to learn, that's going to be a complete waste of my time. But if they are willing to learn, I'm willing as a business owner to take all the time to teach them whatever needs to be taught. I'm willing to invest in them, like, personally, to get them taught.
Yeah.
So the number one thing I look for now is honestly just willingness to learn, because I know pretty much everybody needs to learn a lot when they hop
Yeah.
into this high ticket closing space.
I think this would be good because like a lot of people who are listening to this, as far like my audience, they're like those people trying to get on teams like the ones you have, right? And so like one issue that I see a lot now is like there's a lot of people doing the sales training stuff. And I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that these kids, like 18, 19-year-old with no sales experience, save up their money, buy this training, and then they think like, dude, I basically like I'm set, bro. I bought the training. It's
Yeah.
like, but you don't have results. They're like, but dude, I went through this training.
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
how to close. It's like,
I'm
I mean, you don't
certified because I completed this program.
right. And I like, dude, I think sales training is a great thing. I just think like if if you're doing sales training to use that to help you get a job, it's probably backwards, bro. Like you should get the job and then do the sales training.
Mhm.
But anyways, so for you, being that you run, let's call it like a high ticket company, and then you would hire closers and setters and all that, like you're really just looking for someone who can pick up, match the culture of the team and believe in what they're selling pretty much. Like you don't care they came from this industry and they had this experience or anything like that. It's mostly just about, do I think they
Yeah.
can pick it up?
100%. 100%. Like, dude, literally now, especially after hiring like a bunch of sales reps over the last year, the number one thing I look for on resumes and in interviews is culture fit, and if they have that willingness to learn, right? Like I can teach them now, right? Like I
Yeah.
did that work. I'm willing to as a business owner. I think that's what like so many people who I've interviewed don't understand. They think they need to be the perfect like salesperson. Like I could demonstrate all these skills and I know this and that and this and that. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're trying to show off to a business owner how much sales you know, it's probably because deep down you're insecure because you really don't know that much sales. And he's probably
Mhm.
thinking this kid doesn't know shit, because that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking on some of these interviews. But if you can show that you're culture fit, that you believe in what the business is doing, and you're willing to learn, that's what I'm looking for, right? That I can work with.
Yeah. And I've been on a few different teams, man. And I would say, I think you guys, and I think it's a good thing that you guys emphasize that a little bit more than others. Others, like other teams, you sound like a high ticket drop shipping program. They're just like, we just want a shark, bro. Like we just want someone who's going to get in and sell it. Maybe
Mhm.
the fulfillment isn't as good as what you guys do. So I also see that, I mean, coming from a different industry myself, and a lot of these guys, they're like trying to escape tech and
Mhm.
insurance sales and real estate and all that shit.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, high ticket sales is a very, very specific type of sales. Like it
Mhm.
is very unique. It's really not like anything else almost. Um, and so, yeah, dude, you just got to come in and like know that you've got a long road ahead of you. And if you think you can come from some big ass company and then just like start killing high ticket sales, like, dude, you're gonna be like given a rude awakening, you know? So
I think so 100%, right? It's like almost the same thing as entrepreneurship, where
yeah.
people just come in with the wrong expectation. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like you, especially as somebody who teaches this, see a lot of people who think they want to get into it and then basically drop out and go back to what they're doing, because it's
Yeah.
not easy. Like it is amazing, right? And there's so much opportunity, but like you're saying, it's so niche, it's so specific, it's such a specific thing that like, dude, it's gonna be hard, and you have to be good.
Yeah. It's so hard too from the sales rep perspective to find a team that is, well, one, like fulfilling like they say they do, and then two, like somebody who's going to be around for more than like a year or two. It's
100%.
really hard to find that, man. So like what you guys are doing and the opportunity that you're providing for, some of these people with or without experience, it's like it's what most of these guys are looking for. So I think that's definitely some more stuff we can dive into regarding like you having hired multiple sales reps, and also you managing and training. Um, let's see, which direction should we take it in? So now you you've gotten good at selling, you've gotten good at managing, you've gotten good at training. You've seen a lot of sales reps. I guess let me ask you this: like, how does somebody, you set up an interview, you set up multiple interviews with people, and you specifically, like, you're looking for someone who's just like the A player, bro. Like, you're looking for someone who's going to pick it up fast, who can believe in the culture. Like, how would somebody portray that to you besides them saying, "I'm hungry and I'm willing to go and I'm ready to start tomorrow"? Like, what do you actually look for when you're interviewing with these people?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question, dude. And I don't, I try to make sure, like, when I say this, I'm distinguishing between, because I know your audience is probably a lot of people who are looking to like do this. I'm trying to distinguish between just what I'm looking for a default king sales rep versus like in general, how do you look for this?
Yeah.
But personally, the number one thing I look for is their character. Like that might sound classic Gabe Pluguez wholesome character talk, but like it is, because if they seem like a bitch on the interview, if they seem like a bitch, you're not going to survive in this industry. Like that's not a default casing. That's sales,
Yeah.
right? Like if they
Yeah.
seem like a bitch, like there's zero chance of hiring. Zero. I don't care what their resume says. I don't care what their resume says.
Yeah.
The other thing I look for is it's their character, dude. That's going to go for their ability to learn. That's going to go for their culture fit. I think the culture fit is so important in sales because when you think about a sales room, like sales is so cutthroat that if somebody's not a culture fit, it's going to bring down the entire sales team. Because no matter if like I can be best friends with them or not, like me personally, if they're going to have a bad day or a bad week and bring the energy of the team down, that's going to suck, right?
Yeah.
But if they can be the type of guy who's going to go in there and hype everybody up and have a shit week themselves, but still be talking shit to the guy who's leading the team, like I'm coming for your ass, get ready, right? Little Timmy's not getting Christmas presents this month because I'm taking them, right? If they can build the culture, then that's good to me, right? Like
Yeah.
that is the number one thing I look for is their character, their personality. You cannot give bitch vibes on that interview.
Yeah.
There's
That's
no chance that a
that's
hire's coming.
funny. Now that I look, or like I'm thinking about this, like I'm thinking about the interview that we had, and I came through, or you were working with Closify, I was on Closify, set something up, and dude, I thinking back on it, I was like, dude, I was like, did we just like agree to work together? I was like, it was a quick like 20-minute call. I don't even think you really asked me about like sales experience. We kind of just talked for a while, and
Mhm.
then you're like, yeah, I mean, I think we're good to go, man. Let me just talk to the team and get you started like then or like next week or whatever. But it was truly like just talking to see like what kind of person is this guy.
Mhm.
um and I think that's pretty common in high ticket sales, because like in high ticket sales people aren't really super caught up on resumes. Like the resume will get you the interview, but once you're on the
Yeah.
interview it's not really about what you've done. It's like, just talk to me, dude. I want to see how you talk, how you think. um which, I mean, dude, I can attest to, like, when I got my first sales job outside of high ticket sales, like the college degree I had, it got me in the door. But like
Mhm.
once I got in the door, like shit didn't matter, bro. Like you just have to be somebody that they would enjoy working with and building the business with, and be able to perform at a decent level too.
Yeah.
So
I think you made a good point too about the resume getting you the interview. Cause I also want to touch on that point, right? Like, it's not just
Yeah.
like, you can't just be a good person and like message me
Right.
a song. You'd be like, Abe, I love you. And defaulting is so amazing. Like, no, like that's not going to happen. But you do need the experience. So that kind of comes back to your point earlier where a lot of guys get it wrong, where they think it's, do the sales training, then get the job. Where I think like you got to show that you're willing to kind of dive in without really knowing exactly
Mm-hmm.
how it works. Like if you can show me, yeah, I had this shitty sales job and that shitty sales job, but I still did good and I still worked, like that is absolutely going to get an interview for sure. So I
Cool.
think you still need that track record of like, this dude actually puts in the work too.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's big. And not to say like if you have a sales training before you have the job, like it's not going to help you. Like it will help you, but you shouldn't have a sense of entitlement because you spent like $4,000 on this fucking 50 module course or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay.
I will say I've hired that person. I've hired the person who's only done sales training but has no sales experience. And I didn't even finish onboarding them.
Hire the
Like,
person that, huh? Interesting.
yeah, like they've done the sales training, but they had no actual sales experience. They were
Yeah.
gone in 3 days. Like that, dude. If you don't get fired after trying that, I would question the integrity of the company that just hired you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they don't fire you after
Yeah.
trying that, like, who are you working for?
Yeah.
Because they're not seeing the red flags, which should be a red flag to you.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. So these, like, oh, dude, everybody, and I think the perception of high ticket sales is so skewed, bro, because all these people are trying to sling like make 30K a month in 10 to, or like in 1 to 3 months. And like everybody gets kind of drawn into high ticket sales, I feel like, from like some guru of some some
Mhm.
shape or form. And then like that's kind of their baseline. It's like, oh yeah, like I'll just do high ticket sales and I'll make 10K a month. It's like, no man, the reality of it is like you probably need to get like a shitty job before you get a good one, because no
Mhm.
good job is going to take that bet on you unless they're like desperate, or like you have to know people, bro. That being
Mhm.
said, like, so out of the hires that you have made, um like recently and then in the future, like how many of those came from like direct, hey, this person put in a good word, so now I'm gonna interview and then bring you on, versus just like one applicant in like a pool of
Mhm.
fucking 50?
Yeah, yeah, a good portion, especially, and I'll say this, especially a lot of beginners, like the setters, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of them come from actual word of mouth. Like you have like directly placed like multiple people into our setting position. And I think that's so important, like you said too, because especially when you're talking about guys who may have a little bit lower experience, where maybe their resume is not going to just jump out at me and like get my attention,
Yeah.
immediately from a random email. But if I know somebody else who's credible in the space trusts that person, then that's the most unfair advantage in the world, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Dylan said, this guy was great. Cool. Let's interview him. Like that's all
Yeah.
it takes. So I think that's another really good value add for beginners, is that if you can get in a community like yours and get connected with people in that community, like that's going to push you far. I think that's necessary, because you need to start, especially when you have nothing under your belt. How else are
Yeah.
you going to get that opportunity, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I say, like, that's why I do the model that I do, where it's like pretty low barrier to entry, because like, dude, you don't need $10,000 of sales training. You need to know the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you need to know sales to some extent. Go on YouTube, bro. It's on YouTube. Go
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, go get a door-to-door job,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to know the right people. Um, so yeah, I'm actually really glad you said that, because that's like the whole premise of what I preach is just like in high ticket sales, bro, it's more about who you know than what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
not saying you shouldn't know sales. Again, like, don't nobody take that in the wrong context. Like, you should know sales, but
Yeah.
if you know all the sales in the world, but you don't fucking know anybody, like, dude, you're gonna be selling fucking McDonald's apple pies, bro.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. There's so many like things that are important in this space that just seem like required to succeed, right? Like you obviously
yeah,
need to know sales. You need to have good character, right? You can't be a little bitch. You need to know people. Like these are all just, if you don't have them, good luck. Like I
Yeah.
have no idea how you're going to break into the space, let alone make it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with business, dude. It's the same with business. Like I saw that as a sales rep. I see it as sales rep, or like placing sales reps. And then
Mhm.
like I see it because now I have my own business and I see it like the connections that I make. I'm getting opportunities I wouldn't have got otherwise. And it's, dude, it's more than 100% true. Like just
Yeah.
meet more people, bro. And you guys do a bunch of in-person stuff. And I see you go into like different events, which is super cool. Um, I want to do some more of that. I'm making a move to Austin. I think we were talking a while back.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Tampa, but I'm going out to Austin. I think it's going to be a good experience to meet a lot of people like on this side of the internet doing similar things.
Mhm.
So, anyways,
That's
man,
awesome. I love Austin.
let's talk about now specifically you, or not you, but just like selling the type of service that you're selling. I think that's going to be
Mhm.
super, super helpful for the audience. Now we're gonna. So you've never been in the position to like sell a make money online program or anything like that. Like it's always
No.
been health, right? Let's call it health or like fitness or what would you
Yeah.
call it? I don't want to like downplay it.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
yeah,
what's
those are good labels for this discussion. Health
okay?
and fitness. Yeah.
Cool. Health and fitness. Yeah. So a lot of guys that come to me um, are selling offers similar to this, and there's probably some big name health and fitness ones that you know about that I know people who are like closing for them, and they
Mhm.
run into like very similar problems. I'm sorry, and it's usually because the offer is like it's not a financial. There's no financial guarantee, right? It is, sometimes it's health and fitness, sometimes it's dating, sometimes it's
Yeah.
mindset, and it's where these
Mhm.
people have to use their scarce resource to get more of another scarce resource that's not money. So like it's a
Yeah.
very interesting sell. Like, dude, when I came into Default Kings, I had no fucking idea how to sell it. Like
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, like this is way different. Like the transition into high ticket sales was one thing, but the transition into like high ticket sales, but you're not going to make your money back is another thing. So, dude, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned in selling something where it's like, you're selling directly to a consumer online, high ticket, and they're not going to make the money back? Like, what are the beliefs that you have to transfer to like pull that sale off?
Yeah. Dude, I love this question because this is a question that I had to ask myself, like banging my head against a wall with every single sales rep that I've ever hired coming from the B2B world. All of them. Right. So
Yeah.
I saw this like play out even with you when you started. I was like, like there needs to be something, like there needs to be a transition here. And I wasn't really aware of that in the beginning because I never did B2B. Right.
Yeah.
But now I have a pretty good understanding of what beliefs you need to adopt if you're going to sell B2C or something with a non-direct financial ROI, right? Like most B2B offers, right? You buy this, you should make more money because of it, right?
Yeah.
With mindset, with health and fitness, with dating coaching, you buy this, no, your money's not coming back. Like you're getting something else for your money. So
Yeah.
how do you communicate the value of that? I think that if we think about just like human psychology and human behavior, the implication of losing money is already such an emotional tug on every human being's heart, right? Like this can turn into a whole conversation about like what is money, right? Like is money just a thing? Is it just paper? Is it just a tool, right? I think money is an energy itself, right? Like it can be used for so much, and we understand that inherently. Like if you don't have money, your life will suck. Like you will suffer, right?
Mhm.
You won't be able to eat potentially. You can die if you don't have money, right?
Yeah.
So we already have that. We already know, human beings already know the implication of not having money and the benefit of having more money. So when you communicate that in a B2B offer, or when in an offer where the payback is more money, you don't have to go as deep. You don't have to communicate as deeply with the prospect for them to understand the depth of the problem, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not that it's not as emotional. It's just as emotional, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, it's way more emotional B2C." I think the make your money back offers are just as emotional, but people already feel it. They already know how emotional it is. You don't have to take them to that emotional space.
Mm,
Now, with something like health or dating or mindset, the entire reason why the person has problems is because they don't understand the consequences of what they're doing. They don't get it. That's the reason somebody can eat themselves to 300 pounds overweight is because they don't understand the consequences deeply enough. So they're coming onto that call and they have never felt enough pain to change. Not once in their life. That's why they haven't changed.
yeah.
Right? That's why they haven't changed. They've
Yeah. Yeah.
never made that emotional connection. So now, as a sales rep, it is not just your job to close a deal and to do this to close a deal. It's also kind of your moral obligation, if you're a good person, you want to help this person, to communicate the depth of emotion that's tied to their actions. It's your job to do that now. And I think it takes so much more. Like, you can't just go down the line of, oh, you want to lose weight. Like, why is that important to you? It's important to me because I want to be healthy. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, this offer can make you healthier. Right? Like, that's not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of depth that you take that person to in the conversation where they finally feel that emotional tug where it's like, I need to do this. The same way we all know I need to have money because if I don't, my life will suck. They need to feel I need to change my mindset or my life will suck. I need to get healthy or my life's going to be terrible. I need to learn how to develop this dating skill or I'm going to be alone forever and I'm going to hate myself. They need to feel that on the call and you have to walk them through that process. And I think it just takes longer or not longer in time, but it takes more to get them in that emotional space than it does with we can make your money back because they already have that emotional connection to money.
Yeah. Dude, that was a really good breakdown. And like, I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned working with you guys is like how important it is to make them realize the consequences of their actions, you know, and like make them realize not the problem of 20 pounds overweight today, but the problem of that, you know, projected out 5 years in
Mm-hmm.
relation to everything that they love and care about. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take that and then bring it to the drop shipping program offer, the Amazon FBA, like, fuck, dude, you're going to be a killer. I felt like I went through like a gauntlet of like sales experience and like just sales wisdom working with you guys. And it was super cool because it was partial like Chad sales team energy, like, fuck, they need to buy it. Like, we need to sell it. And then another part of it is like, no, dude, like I can visibly look at this person and I can tell them that they need it because I know our team's going to fulfill 110% on the back end. And what you said, it becomes like your moral obligation to sell this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never felt, dude, I was selling fucking roofs before. Like, sure, it's the roof over your head, but like, we're talking about like something where like if you don't fix it, there is no more, right? Like your roof leaks, whatever, cool. Your
Mm-hmm.
body doesn't work right, like, bro, you don't have much longer.
Yeah.
So that's something where I think it a lot of the high ticket space lacks is conviction, bro. Like
Mm-hmm.
you hear people say like, yeah, I like I'm convicted in it and I believe in it and like I can sell it really well. But like when I was working with Default Kings, like, dude, I fully believed in it. And I will say some of those first guys that I got into the program, being able to see them go through and literally change their lives, bro. Like I'm not going to name drop on the podcast, but I think you
Yeah.
know some of them. Like I think
Yeah.
they're still working with you guys. So like, um, dude, one big teaching that I would like for all the sales reps listening is like work with a team that does what they say they're going to do and more, and you will
Mm-hmm.
not have a problem selling it. I
Yeah.
think everybody. I don't know what the sales team is looking like now, but I mean, when we were closing, I mean, the sales team back when I was on, like, we were all closing above 25% because we had like conviction and we weren't like, we're not selling like a cheap fitness and health service. Like, it was not cheap, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, man, I like that. Now, as far as going back to the concept of the non-financial ROI, more of that, like, I don't know, like the way in which you've got to sell this type of offer where it's, you have to help them come to the realization that, it's not what they think it is.
Mhm.
Problem wise, what are some of the biggest like roadblocks or like obstacles that you see as you are getting people to like get to that realization?
Mhm. The biggest roadblock I see, and this is actually probably the roadblock that even hurts people in the financial ROI offers, is that they don't understand the prospect well enough, and they don't understand how this problem actually affects the prospect. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use like a financial ROI example, and I'll also use like a non-financial ROI example. But if we talk about non-financial ROI, and you're the sales rep, and you're having the conversation, and you don't even think to go deeper. Like you think you're good. You just continue moving on. You pitch. You're like, like that was weird. Totally thought I was going to close that guy. Right? Didn't even blink. It's probably because you don't actually know how deep it is. So I think, especially if you're doing a non-financial ROI offer, you need to know so intimately how this problem affects that person. Because if you only know that, well, if I don't sell it, they're just going to be a little bit overweight, you're not going to sell it. If you know
Yeah.
that if you don't sell it, they're going to be a little bit overweight. And what that means is they're literally going to have anxiety the next time that they go to the doctor's office because you didn't sell them. Then that gives you a little bit more conviction. And you also have the ability to ask that question because you're thinking and you know like how it
Yeah.
actually affects a person. If you know that him and his wife have been having marriage problems because he lacks a confidence in himself to even try pursuing her. And if you know that, you'll ask it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people just are oblivious to that. Like they don't actually know their prospects' problems and their prospects' pains. So the people who I've seen succeed the fastest working with us are the guys who learn the avatar, learn the ICP like as deeply as they can, like the back of their hands, right? And like you even probably saw a lot of this too, where it's like almost everybody in one of these non-financial ROI offers probably has even something in their own life that they can relate it to. Like every sales rep that I've worked with at some point is like, dude, like my uncle's going through the same thing you are right now.
Yeah.
Right. You think of your uncle and you think about how he couldn't, go on the hike with you. And now you really understand that prospect. I think that gets people over the edge. But on the same token, I think people in financial ROI offers can benefit from this too. The reason I say this is because as a business owner, I'm constantly getting sold financial ROI offers, right? And it's probably going to be enough for somebody to tell me that they can help me make more money and prove that it's possible. That's probably going to be enough.
Yeah.
But if I'm on the edge on a service and that person can communicate to me how me not making more money is going to affect every area of my life, I'm definitely buying. If they can
Yeah.
talk about Gabe, like, don't you feel like you're called to bring this mission to every other to more men? Like, it's not really about the money for you, is it?
Yeah.
I'm way more likely to buy. Just immediately, it's way more emotional. Gabe,
Yeah.
don't you want to be able to really, really be able to provide for your fiance and give her the life that she's always dreamed of? Hell yeah, man. That's my dream. That's way more important than just the more money, right? Don't you want to be able to do this for your mom? Yeah, 100%. Right. And
Yeah.
what happens if you don't? How does your fiance look at you if this business fails? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's the same
It,
questions we ask in these emotional offers. Like, how does your wife look at you if you don't solve this weight problem, this mindset problem? It's the
yeah.
same exact question. And I think so many people don't go there, but when they do, it's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching, and I have to buy, right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've each gone over our calls back last year, like we were doing the training and we'd review calls together. Like for those of you listening, I doubt Gabe is ever going to drop call recordings on the timeline, but this dude is really, really fucking good at this. And it's not just like about the question he asked. It's how he says it. It's the frame that was built before. Like, so yeah, you guys, I still don't like, even throughout this podcast, I still don't think they're going to fully comprehend how good at this that you like are. But I think some of the stuff you're hitting on right now is definitely alluding to it. But I want to ask another question, because fitness, health, and the byproducts of a lack thereof are not necessarily the most comfortable topics to speak on, right? You're talking to all different kinds of people, man. You could be talking to someone like me. Next call, you're talking to a guy who's 60 years old, retired, whole different story, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, well, one, how do you ask uncomfortable questions without them coming off as uncomfortable? And then how do you navigate around those who are not comfortable answering the uncomfortable questions? Because without this, it's hard to drive a decision, right? So how do you go about that?
Yeah. The high level answer, there's two things you need if you want to get good at asking uncomfortable questions and them not coming across as extremely abrasive, and then how to deal with it when they don't want to answer. The two things you need at a high level to be capable of asking uncomfortable questions are genuine empathy, number one, and a big nutsack, number two. Okay. The reason I say that is because people who truly want to help aren't afraid to say what hurts, right? Like, think about it. If this was your best friend and your best friend was struggling with the issue that what you sell solves, right? Whether that's weight loss or making more money or whatever it is, your friend's coming to you and they're like, dude, like, I'm struggling to generate more leads for my business. Like, I'm scared we're going to go under. How would you have that conversation with him? It wouldn't be like, oh yeah, dude, like, cool, bro. Like, that sucks. You'd be like, bro, like, what do you need to do? Like, seriously, like, we need to figure out a solution for you right now. What's going on? What are you doing wrong? You would ask those hard questions because you care about the person. Same thing with somebody in your life who you really care about, who's losing track of their health. Like dad, like, this needs to stop, right? Like, I want you to be around here for my kids. So I need you to solve XYZ problem. That's because you care about the person. So if you can develop empathy for your prospects, then you will feel more comfortable asking tough conversations because you'll care about them, right? The other thing is, I don't think that the nervousness of asking tough questions ever goes away, because you know how much empathy I have, right? Because essentially all of my prospects are like basically my dad. So I care about these guys. Like, it weighs on me, bro. It weighs on me. And it's still difficult to ask those tough questions, right? We'll be in the middle of a sales conversation and it's getting pretty deep. And I'm thinking about that next question that I know is going to be the one that gets them to the conclusion that they need to change. And I'm like, ooh, it comes into my mind. That would be really, really awkward if I asked that question. Like, this guy's going to wince if I ask that question. This is going to be painful and weird. He might not even like me after I ask this question. The moment you feel that is when you should ask that question. If you feel that, if you're like, I'm not going to say that, say it. If you don't say it, you're not going to take them deep enough. When you do say it, you've taken them to that place. So anytime I get that moment, I'm like, this is the one. Yeah. I have to grab my nutsack, sack up, do the uncomfortable thing, and ask them. Right? That's no more comfortable than it is for them as it is for you, but you have to do it, right? You're the leader in that conversation. And you think about frame, right? Like, both of you are probably thinking it at that point, but you can really show you're in control if you're willing to say it. Yeah. So genuine empathy and a big nutsack. And I think, tactically speaking, if you show your understanding and your empathy throughout the entire conversation, you'll have the liberty to ask that question and they won't be offended, right? So if you're starting the sales conversation and they're talking and answering your questions, but you're not showing that you heard them, like, you're just continuing to move on, right? Having a very scripted sale, like, okay, cool. Thanks for explaining that. And what about this? it's going to feel like you're not even listening and you don't even care. But if you can demonstrate to them, I am listening and I care actually, then when you ask, they'll trust you more. They won't be like, who's this dick?
Mhm.
Asking me about my personal life or how this affects me. They'll be like, okay, this guy actually wants to help. He's been listening to me this whole time. He understands everything I'm going through. Let me answer his question. I know he's actually trying
Yeah.
to help. So I think you have to show understanding. There's a million different techniques that we can talk about that allow you to show that you're understanding. But if you don't show that you understand them,
Yeah.
it's always going to be taken the wrong way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something where I know is not like super natural to me, like expressing empathy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel it, but expressing it is like a whole different thing. Like I remember when we were going through the call recordings, like we'd watch them back and be like, man, I could have paid that a little bit more attention. And this is something I was literally talking to a guy about it today, like a guy that I'm working with. And I was like, dude, empathy is something that I had a big problem with. And I still have to pay a lot of attention to it um, on my sales calls. And I was like, this is how, what I do to like make sure that these people feel understood, just really like take your time. And I remember one specific example where like, I can't remember if it was my call or somebody else's, but the guy was like, hey, how you doing? Like, how's your day going so far? Whatever, like a little intro. And he's like, oh, I've been busy, like just swamped. And then I don't think this was my call, but we were doing like maybe a role play or something. And then just like, oh, okay, cool. Well, like let's get right into it. And so like just go on with the call. Like, dude, you can't ask that question, get that response, and then just pretend like you didn't get that response. Like because they don't feel like you hear them there, they're not going to feel like you hear them at the end of the call when it's time to make a decision.
Dude, that's
So
such a good example. That's such a good example. That's like, yeah, like, oh, dude, man, my day sucks. Okay, cool. Like, let's get into the conversation. Like, well, yeah, you obviously weren't listening to him. He said
yeah,
his day sucks. There's so many like funny moments like that. They're not funny, but they are funny when I'm reviewing it with a sales rep. I'm like, he just said that, and you didn't even address it. Like, Jesus,
yeah,
man, you must like your shit about this guy. Where like with health and fitness specifically, you'll get guys who the prospect is opening up, right? The prospect is like, dude, yeah, like, my wife made a joke that she wishes she could replace me with two 20-year-olds. That's a quote. I've heard that on a call, right? Like, this is what the prospect said. And the sales rep just, just, oh, yeah, okay. And blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, this dude just told you that his wife wishes she could replace him with two 20-year-olds. That
dude,
sucks, man.
yeah,
Like, address it like, bro, oh my God. Like, are you guys okay? Like, that must have sucked. Show that you care. If you
yeah.
could show that you care, then they'll be way more open to what you have to sell.
You definitely see some crazy stuff selling what you sell. And I remember going through like when we'd have our meetings, some of the stuff that yourself, myself, and Leo, like a lot of guys that listening to this do know about, like Leo, he was on the podcast. I think he's like second episode.
Mhm.
The stuff that we would have to ask or have to respond to, like, dude, you can't make it up. Like, bro, like some of this shit, it's not in your script, bro. It's not in your script. There's no objection handle for it. Like, you're gonna be hit with shit that is genuinely mind blowing, and you're like, you just got to give it your best shot, man. Just like
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
nutsack, fucking go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
no, I
funny.
wanted to, I wanted to ask you about this too because I was talking to someone who had this issue the other day. When we first started, or like when that first round of sales reps came on, and
Mhm.
you were still selling, our sales calls were long as fuck. Like
Mhm.
an hour
Mhm.
was like
Kind of
below
quick.
average. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, sometimes they'd go up to like an hour and a half, and then as we kind of just worked on things more and more and more, I remember you started sending call recordings like 30 minutes, paid in full. So like
Mhm.
what would you say like were some of the biggest things that you did and that you helped the sales reps do to like shrink that call time down by
Mhm.
a large percentage without like losing effectiveness?
Right. Great question. I'm glad you asked because that was my number one insecurity and flaw as a sales rep, which I feel like I've solved now. I was the guy, I could talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I didn't care. It was my business too. So I'm like, I'm good. Like we're doing this. That's so funny, dude. I've spent longer than 2 hours on the phone with somebody. That also makes the non-closes extremely painful. So the funny thing is that with those hour and a half calls, I understood what needed to be done, but I just didn't know how to do it efficiently. So we would still close at a pretty high percentage. Like we're fine. We were making money. It just took way longer than it need to. And there are really four main like sales techniques that I adopted and implemented that allowed me to shorten calls. And this is like tactical sales shit at this point. But the four things we're learning how to ask implication questions and then need payoff questions. Implication questions are questions that make the pain feel worse for the prospect, right? So I knew I needed to do that, but I didn't know how. So it might take me a 3-minute like spiel, right, to help them understand the depth of their pain. Now it's one question. It's just just say this and like they're there. Yeah. Need payoff questions are questions that make the dream bigger. It makes them understand how good the solution is going to make them feel, right? Again, that's something where I have to go freaking Gabe mode, life-changing conversation. Let me inspire you and convince you that it's going to be so amazing. But with these questions, it's just one question. It's way faster. And then I also learned proper mirroring and labeling. Again, something that we talk about in the sales world a lot, but I wasn't doing it the right ways. So learning those four things allowed me to have much quicker conversations. I was able to communicate the depth of the problem with the prospect through a few questions versus having to tell a story and open up and be vulnerable and do this and do that and do this and ask questions. And it was just a smooth line once I had those four techniques in my belt.
Yeah. Those are, I feel like in other types of sales, I don't want to speak for all types because I know other types do it, like implication questions, need payoff. Like that's not news to everybody, but like, dude, in what I was doing or in like real estate transactions, bro, that's like unheard of because you're used to waiting 2 or 3 months for a sale to close. For this, where it's like, I've got 45 minutes. If this person doesn't close, I'll follow up, but I'll probably never hear from them again. Like you have to get that dialed in. So yeah, super. And those are some things that I like really hit on with everybody that I teach as well. Cool. Let me think, man, because I'm glad that I got you here, and I want to make sure that I can provide a lot of value for the people listening. Is there anything, I guess you being like the business owner or from the business owner perspective, and like the audience that's listening, appointment setters, closers, maybe people looking to go from one industry to high ticket sales. Is there anything we haven't covered that you think could be beneficial to them? And let's go from like either the sales rep perspective, sales manager perspective, business owner, anything like that. What's some sauce you can drop?
Yeah, dude, I love this. I'm always sharing this from the perspective of a business owner, and any lesson I share here is going to be because of a mistake that I've made in the past, which I'm fully willing to own. Also, hilariously, because I think you probably saw a lot of my mistakes as a business owner that could have improved your experience. But something that you should absolutely look for with a business when you're considering joining their team is their onboarding systems. Okay, their onboarding systems. So Dylan, I remember when you joined our team, I think you even complimented our onboarding systems. I think you said like, wow, this is great. Like you guys have this and this and that. And like that for at least for my standard, what it is now is like complete shit. Like it took you as a sales rep, no matter how hard you're willing to work, no matter how good you were, no matter how many hours you were willing to put in, way longer than it needed to learn how to sell this thing effectively and start making money. It took way, way longer than it needed to. And so I would highly advise any sales rep, now to ask your companies what their onboarding process looks like and what that system looks like. Because if they don't have a really good answer, it's going to be a grueling start. Right? You're going to be
Yeah.
left you're going to be left blindfolded. And so anyway, to make sure everybody knows, if you're ever considering working with Default Kings, of course, I've done everything in my power to fix that. Where before I hired kind of my next round of sales reps, I put in like 2 weeks, like 8 hours a day, specifically. All I did for those 2 weeks was building my onboarding process. Like that's the only thing I did. It was like in the trenches, freaking addicted to caffeine, 4 hours of sleep, building my onboarding process because I was like, I need to get my guys, not just for me as a business owner, it's going to benefit me. They'll be able to make more money faster.
Yeah.
But for them, because when they start this new job, so they can get up to speed quickly and start selling quickly. And it shows like the round of sales reps that came after you, in terms of just complete like raw skill, you came in with more experience and skill than a lot of them did. But their performance got to close to your level way quicker. And that's not a reflection of your skill or theirs. Right. They just had like, they didn't have to go through the weeds and the mud and all the shit to figure out, oh, that's how I sell this thing. Like you had to, right? They're just like, oh, there's this step and then that step. Okay, got it. Right. So look for a company with a good onboarding process for sure.
That's really good. I usually tell people, and that's the issue with this space is there's a lot of people like promising certain, hey, you're going to make this much per month or whatever. And then you get into the details of it. And it's like, they're not even making that much per month and they've never had a sales rep before and all this. Like I usually tell guys, if they have the chance to like, just go somewhere that's already proven. Mm-hmm. Like, unless you're getting equity or you're getting a base pay or you're getting some favorable compensation plan, like it's usually not worth your time because a good onboarding process is the difference between like, being able to make your first sale on week 2 and then making your first sale on like month 2, So I like that. That's really helpful. All right, man, we're pushing up on an hour 30 here. I guess let's bring it to an end here. But I want to ask, like, what's on the agenda for you and Default Kings? Like, what comes next?
Yeah, dude. So, biggest thing for us is from the perspective of business owners, sales reps. We're completely rebuilding our entire marketing process. There's a lot of things that we saw with our marketing process that were unsustainable and ineffective. And that obviously hurts as a business, but that also hurts just as a person, what we're trying to build, where we're not reaching people that we want to reach to be able to help them. So we're building new marketing systems. We've joined Client Ascension, right? The boys that everybody knows about, specifically for that purpose. And so what that's going to look like is over the next few months, very shortly here, you're going to be seeing a much different marketing strategy from what you've seen from Default Kings previously. That's going to be the biggest change that happens with our company. I think that's going to result in a lot of growth for us, 100%, but also just a bigger impact on the men that we want to help. You're just going to see a lot more life change, a lot more guys like, you saw all the guys that you closed into the program changing your lives. We want that to happen on mass scale. And we think that this new marketing strategy that we're taking is going to give us the opportunity to actually impact people on that mass scale.
Cool. Are you you're still CSO, right? With the new structure?
The new structure with Joey and I is essentially Joey and I we're splitting marketing tasks. So it wasn't just like with just the two of us, one of us completely took over marketing plus sales, or just one of us had, the other way around. But with the marketing now, Joey handles all of the marketing tasks that are more operational, right? He's the ops guy. He's the Zapier wizard, right? He's the guy who loves the spreadsheets and the flowcharts and all the setup and all the clicking and all the, software and stuff like that. So he handles that stuff. And me coming from the sales background, I handle all of the scripting. I handle the VSLs. I handle the messaging. I handle the big ideas, the communication aspect of it. So we're both into the marketing now. He handles more of the setup and the structuring and the organization. I handle more of the scripting, the communication, and the messaging.
Okay. That seems like a really, really smart way to go about it. Like you're leaning into the strengths, right?
100%.
What is the future of the sales team looking like? Like what is your vision?
Yeah. So, dude, my vision for the sales team is number one priority for the sales team is having the culture fit, right? Like that is priority numero uno. So, with the team that we have now, and every single one of them is an amazing culture fit. They're all completely aligned, completely bought into the mission, and that for where I want Default Kings to go, that's the most important thing by far. I need a sales team who is literally willing and capable to be the front line of a mission and willing to inspire all of these men to change their lives. By the way, that's how they're all going to make more money, is if they're better at doing that. But I need men who are willing to do that. That's the number one thing. And then I'm also looking for the sales team specifically to kind of expand the way that we close deals, right? Like you saw a process where it was really one funnel of acquisition. It was just organic content. And that really only meant kind of one type of sale. But since we're adding lots of new channels in the near future, and there's even going to be different deals coming through, even potentially business to business, like enterprise size deals, I need them to be flexible to be able to have multiple different sales processes for that. So that'll be a development within the next year, but that's what I'm looking for.
Dude, I was going to ask you, is there any plan for like a B2B aspect of this, which,
yeah,
dude, I don't know. I'm not like as tuned into the space as you are, but like nobody on our side of Twitter is doing that. That's for sure. Like the enterprise aspect of it.
Yeah, 100%, dude. That's a huge priority for us in this upcoming year. Obviously, it's going to be really beneficial business wise, but if you think about like what we're doing, we are focused on like the men of this world, right? Like that's who we want to help, and a lot of times, like we're trying to target and reach the men who are part of these enterprises anyway, right? We're reaching the business owners, we're reaching the sales guys, the high level employees, right? If we can just go to them directly through their business, then that's going to make our ability to impact them way more efficient, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
absolutely something that's coming down the pipeline.
All right, dude. Well, when that turns into a multi 7-figure year play, we'll have this podcast to come back to. You said it here first. But no, man, it's been awesome having you on. And by the way, I've seen the short form take over on. I think you're on like TikTok, and are you on Instagram with it?
Yeah,
Short
yeah.
form. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the short form. So yeah, dude, I'm excited to see where you guys take it in the next. I mean, year plus. Like it's a long game, right?
Yeah.
But man, for any of these guys that want to work with you, whether they want to get in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, or potentially want to see when you're hiring your next sales rep, when or where can these people find you? Where do you want them to connect with you?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. For joining the team, Gabe at defaultkings.com. That's the email. And for joining the team and getting the best shape of your life, just click the link in my bio across all social media platforms.
Cool. I'll link you below. Yeah, man, this has been good. I think a lot of value for the listeners. A lot of cool perspectives, not just the sales rep perspective this time, sales manager, business owner. So yeah, man, been a pleasure to have you, and
Dude,
we'll chat soon, man. Really appreciate it.
Heck yeah, bro. I appreciate you having me on, man. This was fun. We gotta have that yacht day in Miami or Tampa a year from now, smoking cigars, talking about how it all started in the trenches.
Yeah, dude. We haven't even met in person yet, dude. I might have to come out to one of y'all's events. When's the next one?
The next one is July 14th through 16th.
I might have to look into it, man. I might have to look into it. But anyways, no, really good having you, man. This one will be posted up very shortly, and hopefully the audience likes it.
Okay, man. All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Take care.